He's celebrating the start of his 28th year as a firefighter, wearing the white hat as fire chief for Miami Township in Clermont County, Ohio. Steve Kelly is also wearing the hat of interim administrator for the township while they conduct a thorough search to hire a new administrator following the departure of Jeff Wright. It is in the role of Township Administrator he joins us today. Hello, everybody. I'm Chuck Gibson, and this is Loveland Beacon Talks. It is my pleasure now to welcome our guest to update us on what's coming for Miami Township in 2024. So welcome, Steve Kelly, acting Miami Township Administrator, but for you folks listening at home, Steve Kelly is the fire chief for Miami Township here in Clermont County. But thank you for joining us here on Loveland Beacon Talks today.
Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you.
Well, trust me, it's my pleasure to have you on to tell everybody, what's happening in Miami Township, like what's ahead for 2024. Very much the same as, the presentation, which, by the way, I think you did a great job.
Thank you.
If I can steal a line for everybody, once upon a time.
That's right. That is how I led off the presentation. You're right. We're going through a lot of changes. There's a lot of new and exciting things going on in the township. There's a lot of new people in new positions and a lot of really great projects that we've got going on, some of which our residents are seeing right now with earth moving and new roadways going in, new signage around the township. So I think they're starting to see a lot of this kind of development and new things coming as we're getting into spring. And the weather's changing, and people are getting out and about more.
Well, yeah, and getting into spring is a good point, because then also we see some of the orange barrels because there's some road projects. But real quick for everybody, Miami Township, Clermont County, and I could put the notes in front of you just
Sure.
in case, but I know off the top of your head, tell us, kind of what's the statistics? Tell us about Miami Township in terms of how big is it and what makes up Miami Township in Clermont County?
Sure, we're kind of a best kept secret in the sense that I know a lot of folks in our community have either a Milford or a Loveland mailing address, and a lot of their kids go to Loveland or Milford schools. And even in the southern part of the township, we have a portion that's represented by Clermont Northeastern schools down there as well.
Wow.
So Miami Township in and of itself encompasses 33.5 square miles. We have almost 45,000 residents in the township. So we're bigger than some of our neighboring partners kind of put together, and we're a big service provider. So selfishly, in the fire department, I have 4 stations that cover that population and that size, but I-275 runs down about 5 miles on the western edge of the border of the township. We cover over 8 miles of the Little Miami River. And it's busy. We've got about 16,000 households in Miami Township.
Right.
We're a predominantly residential community with some corridors along the major state routes and U.S. routes at 50, 131, 28, and Ward's Corner Road. And that's where a lot of our residents, are accessing 275 to come and go from the township, or a lot of the businesses and restaurants and things that they like to interact with.
Yeah. Well, and that allows, I think it's great, like you mentioned, the Ward's Corner, and then that access 275, 28, 50, and so on and so forth, 131. It's great for like a little bit of commercial development.
Yeah.
And some of the commercial industry type things that you have going on here. What, I guess, and I know you covered like about 16,000 households, and so on and so forth. Again, the figures, the statistics, I know from when you're sharing, you had Clermont County, the median income's about $78,000. Miami Township's a little bit better, almost $110,000 median income for your residents is what you shared. And
Yes.
then also, I think this is really nice. People need to know the home values. Clermont County overall, Miami Township within it. Clermont County overall about $251K.
That's correct.
And you guys come in at almost $277K.
That's right.
For median home value.
Yes.
So pretty nice numbers, pretty good residential community.
Absolutely. And we try to structure our services around that as well by trying to, it involves, police and the service department, recreation, the administration building here that we're in right now, as well as the fire departments that are located throughout the community. We firmly believe as a group to try to find ways to provide value-added services to our residents. So there's the standard stuff. We're going to answer the calls for service. We're going to respond to 911 calls. We're going to show up and pave the roads and do those things. But I think a lot of our residents would attest to the fact of we try to go above and beyond and meet people with the needs that they have in their subdivisions and in their part of the community with different projects and things that we're trying to work on with them.
Yeah. Well, and again, for everybody listening, Steve, this isn't your bailiwick. I was teasing you, offline when we were just talking. In fact, when we were talking at the event back in early February,
right,
for the whole, the whole region with Loveland and Sims Township and Miami Township, and I was teasing you. I said, is Steve Kelly going to maybe be the next Township Administrator? And you said, do you like fire chief?
I do. It's what I've known. I've been the chief now here in Miami Township for 10 years. I've been in the fire service for 28 years this year.
Wow.
So it's a lot of what I've known and loved.
Yeah.
But I will say this, I've learned a lot, and there is a lot to be done from that level of the administrator's position that I quite honestly am fascinated by. A lot of the public works projects and the things that we're doing in the community with our residents, with our business owners, with other entities throughout the county that is really intriguing to me. So I am seriously enjoying the time as the interim administrator as well.
Well, so in 2024, what are some of the developments, that are key developments that are happening in Miami Township?
Sure. I think some of the big things folks would see if they drive down our central business corridor, as we call it, which is along State Route 28, running east to west from 275 all the way over into Goshen. You'll see a lot of dirt being moved. There's a new Aldi store that's coming in, a brand new public roadway that's going to serve that directly across the street from Kohl's. The name of that road is Loveland Drive. That will tie into the Christ Hospital Medical Arts Building that's right there. It will also tie back into the subdivision on the back end of that, which is Al Gore Acres, which predominantly has been served just by going in and out on State Route 28 at Roan Road.
Oh, wow,
so the nice part about that is having a controlled traffic signal at Loveland Drive will provide safe ways for our residents back there to be able to get onto 28 and turn left without having to cut across multiple lanes of traffic to do so. And then there's some outlot development that's slated for Loveland Drive in front of Aldi, as well as another phase on the back end of it that could be developed in the future. And then flipping over to the other side of the street, we have a new carriage house car wash going in, I believe a tire discounter's facility going in over there as well. And then at Mulberry Square, a little further up the road, our Kroger is undergoing a revision right now to become a Kroger marketplace.
Oh, no kidding.
So a lot of stuff going on in that plaza where Kroger is taking a big footprint there and redeveloping that store, and a lot of that is just based on the needs of the community again.
Well, just curious, talking about the carriage house car wash and the tire discount, moving over there. Seen a lot of the earth move there.
Yeah.
But it seems kind of quiet. I mean, do you have a timetable for them, or have you guys been hearing anything about what they project for?
We're still hearing that they hope to be able to start building stuff as soon as possible this year once the weather kind of stabilizes and everything the temperatures normalize a little bit. But yeah, I was just driving past it today, and they're still doing some of the regrading of the earth and everything over there. So Aldi's a little further along. We're looking for that to open up sometime this summer.
Well, that's what stirred the question, because they were kind of even at the excavation at the start, but then Aldi's really, there's a structure. I mean, Aldi's looks like Aldi's,
correct,
minus the finishing touches right now, so that's pretty cool.
Right, and Kroger's moving very quickly as well.
Well, and then speaking of earth moving, there's been a big pile of dirt by the Milford schools. So I know a couple of development projects you mentioned, back at early February was, of course, the middle school improvements and the field house and stadium remodel.
Yes,
for the schools. Anything you want to share about that, or
just a huge project? I know the school district worked with the state of Ohio to offset the cost for that redevelopment and the new facilities as much as possible. And I can't speak to the values associated with that specifically, but I can tell you that the school district was trying to be as responsible as possible to make sure that they could get a state-of-the-art building, because Milford Middle School right now, as it sits, has been many things over many years and has been around for a long time. And we all know that with the growth of the school district is exceeding that, the capacity of that building. So, yes, you'll see a new 3-story middle school going up over there, the new field house, as well as some locker room facilities and kind of changing in areas where the public can interact for concession stands and stuff, and then the new Sorry, I just blanked there real quick. The
field house.
The field house, and then right behind the new stadium.
Right,
That's what I'm looking for.
I knew where you were going with that.
The improvements in the stadium right behind that as well. So there's just so much going on over on that campus right now. And that mound of dirt that you see out front, I know, has garnered a lot of attention on social media as Mount Milford. What's going on with Mount Milford and things. It might actually be rephrased as Mount Miami Township. But in and of itself, that's a lot of the dirt that's being moved off-site or then being moved and then moved back on-site as it's needed for growth operations.
That campus is definitely Miami Township.
Yes, it is.
Proper, but so yeah, Mount Miami Township.
Mount Miami
I love
Township.
that. We're going to change it. Get that social media moving toward.
Fortunately for us, we didn't have enough snow this year to really warrant that as a sled hill, or I'm sure a lot of our youngest residents
I would have been surprised if I saw maybe a ski lift go up.
Right. That would be neat to put in.
Something like that, yeah. Touched on, real quick, because spring is finally, hopefully coming.
Yes.
As we sit here and record this on Monday, the weather turned beautiful after a really cold, rainy weekend.
Yes.
So at least we got a sunny blue sky and a little bit warmer today, but it's going to be really nice.
We'll take it.
And we touched on the orange barrels and road. So you talked about the services to the people. So department projects, starting off with doing some repaving. What's happening there? What can you say about that?
So our roads department, through the passage of the roads levy a few years ago, has been fortunate enough to really kick the paving program, the repaving program, into overdrive. They've got over 12 miles of public roadway in Miami Township slated to be repaved this year. We have a couple of major stabilization projects going on, one of which on Sugar Camp Road right now is going to have part of that road closed down for the next 6 weeks.
Yikes.
But when you see the terrain in Miami Township and you're going along 131 and you drop down Sugar Camp or Dry Run or Wolf Pen, you know that terrain definitely changes and slopes downward as you get towards 50. A lot of those roadways, as they kind of curve and go around and there's streams next to them and everything, we do wind up with some slippage issues with the roadway that need to be stabilized and then piered and repaved and things like that. So that's all part of it, as well as some additional projects that are just your normal maintenance as they go around throughout the community.
Well, I know one of the pride and joys, and again, I had the pleasure to talk with Jeff Wright while he was still here in the administrator's role before he moved on. I know one of the pride and joys for Miami Township is the parks.
Yes.
We talked about, almost 45,000 residents, 5 community parks.
Correct.
To make up, make up the recreation aspects. What's going on with parks and planning? I know there's some big park project things going on this year, too.
Yeah, so we actually have it in the budget this year, and we signed the contract getting ready to move forward on having an assessment done of all of the township parks for some long-range planning needs that we know need to go into those parks. They're used very frequently. In fact, right now I was talking with our recreation director, Ryan Himes, the other day, and all of our fields are already booked for the baseball season, and they were booked very quickly. So there's not a lot of available space for just walk-up or walk-on type things because a lot of the community is using that in a very structured fashion throughout the season when it benefits, soccer, baseball. We have a cricket field over at Miami Meadows Park off of 131. I mean, we're really trying to look at what the parks are doing and how they've been built back in the 1990s and how we've evolved when it comes to athletics and things that we enjoy for recreation. And we're trying to adapt to meet the needs of the community. So pickleball is a big thing. We're trying to work on pickleball right now and improving those facilities, and converting some of the tennis courts to pickleball courts makes sense, and then having room for basketball and things like that. And we're going to do this project to try to make sure that not only are our parks up to speed with what we need and the longevity of the hardware and materials that's in those parks, but also that they're meeting the needs of the community and we can plan for those moving into the future.
Yeah. So I was going to tease you, in all your spare time,
right?
when you're not acting township administrator and serving as the fire chief, have you taken up pickleball yet?
I have not. Honestly, I've never played a game of pickleball, but I'm very interested to try it at some point.
All right. I think Jeff got mad because I told him, I said, I just don't get it. I mean, it's ping pong on a tennis court, which, oh, wait a minute, there's tennis already. What are we doing? Anyway.
It looks interesting to me. It just looks like challenging in the sense that I might get steamrolled.
It's catching on, so I'm not going to complain. I'm going to have to go try it. And
absolutely.
Then I can say yay or nay.
Maybe you and I'll try a game together. How's that?
That sounds great. We'll figure that out in our spare time, what we're talking about. The other thing, and we're going to get to the fire department.
No problem.
Which is your bailiwick, but I want to talk about some developments and things that are going on for the police department.
Sure.
I think that one of the things you touched on, well, this is one that really has my curiosity, the new drone program.
Yes.
What can you say about that?
So our drone program is new as of 2023.
I see.
And we've been, a few of the officers have received the formal training that they need to be able to pilot a drone safely. We have the licensure in place to be able to fly those. They're fully insured. Everything's ready to go with the drone program. It's kind of been on a slow development track. We've been using it a lot for search and rescue operations, so it's been very efficient with helping to find people that might have walked away from a residential facility or a home. Folks that we know have been even lost out in the woods have been found. One person most recently, and I believe Chief Mills illustrated this in one of our township trustee meetings, had some video, the infrared video footage from the drone showing a person laying down out in the woods who was unconscious and who hadn't been seen for a while. They were able to track this person by using the drone and then in voice communications with the officers that were on the ground to be able to triangulate that search and come to this person's aid and then notify EMS so that we could stabilize and transport that person to the hospital. So the drone program is not the eye in the sky like a lot of people might think that it is, just doing average reconnaissance looking for problems. It's being deployed strategically to help assist the police do their job and help us find people in a very expedient manner.
Well, that was a great story.
Yes.
To demonstrate the use of it, because in my mind, you do start to wonder, is it eye in the sky like you just said?
Right.
No, it's serving the people.
Right.
In a very beneficial way. That's just an amazing story of being able to rescue somebody or help somebody in need of aid.
Absolutely.
One real quick too. The other thing, almost eye in the sky on the same thing. The flock cameras.
Yes.
I know there's 25. How new or how long have the flock cameras been in place? I know it said 25 have been installed throughout Miami Township.
And they've been put in over, I believe, the last 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
They've been going in slowly along some of the major roadways. And again, not necessarily an eye in the sky or eye on the ground type program, but they've been able to help us help our police department solve a lot of crimes where vehicle theft in the area. We know we have some folks that are coming from city of Cincinnati to the suburbs and looking for vehicles that they can steal and then take somewhere else.
Right.
And it's been able to help track those vehicles very quickly when they can determine the path of travel in or out of the township.
Perfect. Well, then we were talking about the development at the schools. So one of the other developments at the schools has to do with the police department.
That's correct.
The school resource officers. There's 8 total. Is that some new additional officers this year, or what do you know about the school resource officers program?
So the school resource officer program is one that we've worked on cooperatively with the Milford School District, and their goal was to have an officer in every school building at some point to be able to outfit every school with its own dedicated school resource officer. And we've been working with them to be able to do that. And sometimes that requires us hiring someone new or taking someone who's an existing employee and assigning them to that and then backfilling their position on that.
I see.
So we've been fortunate to hire the 8 that we have, one of which, our newest one, last fall, is a canine officer. Oh, wow. And a canine not with a typical trained canine dog, but one that's capable of doing search as well as sniffing out for drugs and things like that that could be a danger to the school. So it's been fortunate in the sense of having this officer that is able to deploy the dog on a regular basis. So students are just used to seeing a dog, which we all know is very common these days in most schools. A lot of schools do have some kind of peer support or behavioral health support animal in the schools. Yeah. And now they're seeing a dog come in that's also there for their support and their protection as well.
Outstanding. You mentioned Ryan.
Yep.
And so we got to touch on recreation. A couple of big things coming up.
Yes.
One of them I get to be a part of.
Excellent.
But Ryan's not here to share too much about that. But I know June 29th. What's this? Parrots of the Caribbean.
Yes. So Mr. Himes is not only a huge Jimmy Buffett fan, but with the passing of Mr. Buffett last year, has kind of recognized that his music is iconic in the Cincinnati area. And Mr. Himes thought it would be a great idea to pay homage to him and set up a concert memorializing Mr. Buffett in Miami Township. So one of our concerts in the park will be dedicated to Jimmy Buffett as a tribute.
Well, I got the date here. So for everybody listening, June 29th.
Correct.
Parrots of the Caribbean.
You've got it.
tribute to Jimmy Buffett.
And all this information is available on our website as well, which I know you'll put in the online presentation.
But that's the Miami TWP. Is it -O?
It's not just
OH.
OH.gov. Okay. Yep.
Well, and we'll share that. Miami TWPOH.org.
.gov.
Oh, .gov.
.gov.
Not .org. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to do it again. Miami TWPOH.gov.
You've got it.
And we'll share it in print as well.
Absolutely.
But then the 2-day event that's going to celebrate, I think it's the 20-year anniversary for Miami.
25th anniversary,
25th.
I believe, yes.
Yeah, which starts, the two days, July 26th, a whole bunch of stuff going on.
Yes, and it's mainly baseball themed, so some of it will be here at the Civic Center. We're going to have the historian from the Reds Hall of Fame come in here and deliver a presentation to the community on anyone that wants to sign up for it about the history of Reds baseball in Cincinnati. And then we're going to have a concert from the Bronson Arroyo Band that will be out at Miami Meadows Park. And then part of that day with the concert will also be a throwback, old school baseball game, and you can talk to that.
So that's and I will throw in that because I am a member of the Cincinnati Reds Hall of Fame 1869 Cincinnati Red Stockings vintage baseball team. And some of the people in the area might have seen us out at Goshen already. Mm-hmm. We've played, or anywhere else, but it's a great, awesome opportunity to see baseball played the way it was played in 1869. So that's obviously, and Bronson Arroyo, I mean, what a great thing. The historian, probably going to be Perry Thacker. I'm not certain it'll be Perry. It might be a different historian from the Hall of Fame. But I can vouch for this. Perry Thacker, nobody knows more. Somebody might know as much, but nobody knows more the history of baseball and the stories that he'll share. It'll be a delight for anybody who loves the game of baseball. And even if you don't, you want to learn a little bit about it, should be a lot of fun.
And our own recreation director, Ryan Himes, plays on that team with you as well.
Ryan is a teammate with our 1869 Red Stockings.
And to put a little twist on it, we're comprising a team from Miami Township of some of our employees to play against that team and hopefully represent us well, but that will be police officers and firefighters and paramedics, service workers, recreation, administration. We're going to compile the best team that we can to try to give it our best.
I promise. Having been part of it, we do this. I mean, the Cincinnati 1869 Red Stockings from the Hall of Fame, we play charity games and we play exhibition games.
Oh, that's great.
And I don't think you guys are doing this to raise money.
No.
So this is going to be an exhibition game. When we play that, we play some competitive games against other vintage baseball associations.
Sure.
But our main goal and objective is to share the history, to share the vintage baseball, and those are the charity games and the exhibition games. You guys will have a blast. You are playing, right?
I'm going to probably coach at some point, but I can't promise it won't get competitive.
You got to get out. A couple of things for people listening. 1869 baseball, no gloves.
No gloves.
And it is a hard ball.
Yes.
And it's baseball like today in terms of 90-foot bases and things. There's some other rules that come on out and watch it. But anyway, that's enough on that.
That's awesome.
But it's going to be a lot of neat things in the recreation department and with the parks and improvements and things like that.
A lot of great
stuff going on there. Touch on I know TIFs because finance and human resources.
Right.
So basically grant funded township, right? But TIFs I get. Mm-hmm. What's the RIDS? And tell me what you can about the TIFs and the RIDS. What do you know? I don't even know.
Sure. So in the township, we're based off of a lot of our funding. Most of our funding is based off of property tax values, property values, and then taxes that are levied off of those property values. So what we do with tax increment financing districts and the RID is a residential financing district, basically. It's essentially the residential version of what a commercial property would be. And what we're trying to do is pool some of the resources from those to be able to realize an income or a revenue stream that isn't then again put back on the residents to double up anything on them, but it's used for things like infrastructure. So we don't hire people, we don't pay for salaries or promote people based off of this, but it affords things like new fire engines, new police vehicles, new plows and things like that, new buildings and those types of things. Durable goods, capital type projects that will serve the community for at least 5 years and have a value that is at least or not exceeding $5,000, which I can assure you most of these projects definitely exceed that value. But it's things that we know will serve the community for many years to come.
Very good. Well, and real quick, if you touch on because you mentioned like hiring and things. So the adaptive hiring process, what is that all about?
So we're fortunate as a home rule township. We're able to look at expediting our hiring processes to try to be as competitive as we can in this limited market for employees. And between our finance director, Kelly Flanagan, and our human resources director, Emily Asher, we've really looked at trying to pare down the length of time that it takes to hire an employee here, which is great. In a lot of cities, they're required to follow Civil Service Commission rules, which means that it could take anywhere between 3 months to a year to hire somebody, and we try to make sure that window is as short as possible because, like I said, it's very competitive to try to hire folks, high-quality folks in today's day and age, and we're trying to not frustrate them by having a hiring process that takes longer than anybody else, and we're trying to kind of take some of the steps and really condense them in as short amount of time as possible so we can make a recommendation to the board to get these people onboarded with us as quickly as we can.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I promised you, Steve, that we would get to your bailiwick, the fire department. So finally, and we're coming up close to wrapping up here shortly. So I waited till the very end so you could really share. So fire and EMS in 2024, what's happening?
So we're trying to do as much as we can. We are having a high attrition rate in our department just because we have a lot of folks that are able to retire.
Oh, wow.
And a lot of the suburban departments are going through this. Our police department's going through the same thing. As the suburbs grew in the 90s and in the early 2000s, that's when a lot of our services expanded. And now you're seeing folks that have served a full service tenure in their positions as service providers, and they're exiting or they're leaving for other opportunities that don't involve public service anymore or serving as a police officer or a firefighter or as a paramedic. So we're working on training the next generation of our workforce and finding the right people, plugging them in, and then promoting folks that have been with us for a while and are ready to take the step up the ladder. But I think some of the neat things you'll see with Miami Township is over a few years ago, we were able to put in a new community paramedicine program, and that's led by Lieutenant Jim Petrie. That is a program that's designed to interact with our residents before they ever need to call 911. So if someone is recently discharged from the hospital, we're able to follow up with them after they've been discharged from the hospital. If it's someone with more chronic care issues that needs to be addressed at home, we can get referrals in from the family, from the primary care physician, the at-home health care, whether that's a nurse or somebody that comes to visit them on a regular basis or a therapist. And we can work to fill the gap so those folks can stay in their home and be comfortable and have a lot of the services that they need without having to go to the hospital to be followed up with.
That's amazing.
Additionally, we're rebolstering our community risk reduction profile. So what that means to the average resident out there is that we have a lot of resources, teaching CPR classes, having the scouts come in to do first aid classes with us, working in the community with all of our business partners on the fire code enforcement things. We have a brand new division chief of community risk reduction, Joe Staffolano, and a new full-time fire inspector, code enforcement specialist, Paul Eckert, and they're working to make sure that we're in our community proactively to make sure that there's very little risk of emergency or catastrophic fire and things like that way ahead of the need ever arising.
Perfect. The only thing I did want to bring back up too from back early February at the earlier discussion of the regional update. So Station 27, improvements are happening or have happened. What's the status on that?
Sure. So we're getting ready to finalize the conversion of that station. Believe it or not, it was still on a septic tank.
Oh, wow.
And we have converted that over to public sewer. This month, we're working on the final connections for that and getting that moved over to public sewer. And then we're having a study done of that building to find out what we can do with it long range for the future. Many people don't know, if you've driven by it, that building was built in the mid-1990s, and it was built for a volunteer fire service. Today, we operate on a 24/7 service cycle, and there's people that are living in that building day in and day out, and we've professionalized the fire service. So it's a building that was never designed to have people living there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And that part of the community, our northern part of the community along Ward's Corner and our border with Loveland, a lot of that is growing very quickly. New subdivisions have been added, new houses have been added, and there's a lot more call volume going on in that part of the community.
Right.
So we're staffing more to accommodate that. It's a very busy part of the community, and we're trying to make sure that the facility that they're operating out of will meet the long-range goals and needs of that part of the community.
Well, and I know one of the key things, and you know this better than I do, having been a firefighter for all these years, you can't take care of the people if you have been taken care of first. So that's critical.
Correct.
That you guys have the proper equipment, the proper rest area, all the things that you need as well.
Right.
Speaking of all the things you need, so Miami Township needs some people. The last thing we're going to touch on is hiring. Again, going back to the early February at the regional update, and we know that this is still true. The Township Administrator is a position that's still open.
Correct.
You guys are interviewing and doing that since Steve's not going to take it.
We're still investigating who's going to fill that role for us.
And then, so what about Executive Assistant? That's still a role that's open? Or?
We just hired that person. In fact, today is her first day in the office.
Outstanding.
Her name is Kelly Gibson, and we're excited to have her with us.
Well, I'm Chuck Gibson, but I'm not related to Kelly Gibson, and my pen just quit writing. But here we go. Now we get it going. So Kelly Gibson is the new executive assistant.
Correct.
So also in the you kind of touched on this, the fire paramedic and fire EMT.
Correct.
What's the status on those?
So we just hired a few folks in that capacity as well. They just started last week in their orientation program. We hired some part-time and some full-time folks.
Yeah.
Our police department is swearing in 2 new police officers at our trustee business meeting tomorrow night on Tuesday. So we're making progress on a lot of those vacancies I talked about back in February. That's kind of indicative of what I talked about with our hiring process of trying to shorten some of that time down and get these folks plugged into positions, oriented, and on the street serving the community as quickly as possible.
Well, a lot happening, and really good news in the hiring aspect. A lot has happened since last we talked and last you shared what was going on in Miami Township. Steve, Kelly, thank you so much for joining us today.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it was fun.
Thanks for having me. I'd be glad to do it again in the future because I'm sure more change is coming.
Well, I'm sure everybody wants you to come back so you can tell them how you beat me playing pickleball.
Oh, I don't know about that. We'll have to be on the same team.
Yeah, you know what? We should do doubles, you and I, against somebody who's never played at all.
I think that would be fair.
Which would be just like us.
Level the court, right? Level the playing field.
Well, thank you again, Steve. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Chuck.
No doubt we will welcome Steve Kelly back again in the future. Maybe next time wearing his white fire chief helmet to share some fire safety tips. For now, this has been another edition of Loveland Beacon Talks. I'm Chuck Gibson saying thanks for listening here on Loveland Beacon. Loveland Beacon Talks is a presentation of Loveland Beacon Digital Media and Gibson Communications, LLC.